This is the Fatty Joe Show, coming to you from Casa de Carrie, deep in the forests of Nutmeggerville. This show is dedicated to exploring pathways to better health from a holistic perspective. In each episode, we will explore such topics as nutrition, mental and emotional health, fitness, and more. I'm Yogi, your host, and I became interested in studying health after conventional health dogma became damaging and led me to become massively overweight. Against modern convention, I went on a keto lifestyle and I lost over 300 pounds and gained a level of control on my personal health that I never had before. Now I'm on a journey to find out what is myth and what is truth in the ever convoluted world of what is considered healthy. Come join me on a journey of discovery as I look for a path to improve total health. If you'd like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/thefattyjoeshow or patreon.com/carriebrown. If you want to check out all of our social media links and recipes, head to carriebrown.com. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, and subscribe to the show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Fatty Joe Show. Today I actually have a guest on who is one of the three hosts of the Keto Man's Club podcast. They run the Facebook groups, the Keto Man's Club and the Keto Man's Club 101 Facebook groups. This is Chris Duckett. He's been a longtime member of Keto, been around since the Keto Evangelist days, and I'm really honored to have him on. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing well. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks, man. It'll be awesome. And, generally we just like to talk about basic health things. But the first thing I want to start out with is you've been a fixture in the keto world, kind of behind the scenes for a while until you started your own podcast.
Sorry.
Yeah. So you've recently started your own podcast with Alberto and Jim, and you guys are focused on men's health, men's podcast. What kind of brought that about?
So I have been around for a little while at this point. I was the editor for all of the Keto Evangelist podcasts there for quite a while, and along the way, I met Alberto, and he introduced me to the Keto Man's Club, and so I joined in and kind of inserted myself the way that I do into organizations that I believe in and things like that. And one of the things that I just kept on noticing more and more and more of was there was not a podcast specifically catering to and focused on men and men's health. So in the entire spectrum, there were either, we don't care what gender you are, or there were plenty of women focused podcasts for specifically for keto, but there was nothing out there for men. And just like women have specific aspects of that they need to be able to focus on, men have the same thing. We have things like testosterone. Part of my personal journey has been that I had to get onto testosterone replacement because I was going to, I was just super, super low. And so I started that almost 5-6 months probably before I actually got before I got into keto, and that's been a major part of my journey, is getting my hormones right in general. But that includes, in this particular case, for sure, it includes making sure that I eat well and eat the right things and all of that. But yeah, that was the genesis, was seeing the need, the spot for a ketogenic podcast with a specific ilk towards men, and then and then I kind of put a general call out there. And of course, Jim, who's the founder of the Keto Man's Club on Facebook, he jumped in and said, yes, let's do it. And Alberto, he's like, yeah, sure. Let's do it. And we were like, okay, do we want to do three hosts? And like, well, why not? It'll give us, people to talk to, if nothing else. And so that's where we are. We're 60. We just put out episode 64 this morning.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I've been listening to you guys since the beginning, and really enjoyed what you guys are putting out there. And you were right, there really isn't anything out there that was gender specific until you guys came along. There are a few out there now. I haven't really checked them out that have come out, but you guys were the original Man's Club. But Daisy's got her women's club. There's been several other women's club, but you were touching a bit on the differences between the genders and how the health issues come into play. And one of the things you talked about was, and you're pretty open about talking about it on the podcast or on the groups, is dealing with low testosterone. And can you tell me a little bit about what that procedure was and what was going through there?
Sure. Well, to talk about what I was feeling first, just so that leads into it. Largely, I was feeling a kind of a sense of extra lethargy. Just a lot of just everything seemed to slow down. There was a bit of an element of erectile dysfunction involved, and I had plenty of signs that things were not quite right inside my body. Let alone I was at that point about 380 pounds, and I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired for the most part. And some of that sick and tired, it ended up being my testosterone. Now, I had tried doing a round of testosterone replacement at one point in the past with a doctor that was I had to go to his office and get the shots there. He wouldn't let me self-administer, and he was like 20 minutes away. And so and it was like, oh, come for the big shot once every 2 weeks. And so it was just a really bad regimen. And so I didn't feel any better. And so this time around I was at a urologist, had a procedure done, and I'm like, while I'm here, you guys do testosterone stuff. I want to talk about that. And so, talked with the doc who's actually the physician's assistant, who still administrates my protocol. And he was able to say, yeah, let's run your numbers. And he's been very holistic, even though he's, in the traditional medical field, he's been very holistic. And so we look at everything and we talk about how I feel and all that type of stuff. In the end, I am now on a protocol of 2 weekly shots of a total of around 0.7, 0.8 milliliters, which equals to about 150 to 175 milligrams of testosterone a week. And that's a pretty average that's a pretty average type of regiment for a lot of men. I could either back off or I could ramp it up a little bit. At this point, I'm kind of in that bubble. My numbers though stay very close to around about 900 total. And then whenever I calculate the free, it's right smack dab in the middle of where I want to be and is average or even above average.
Yeah, and this is something that's actually a lot more common in men to have low testosterone, especially nowadays. And not a lot of guys want to talk about it, especially as openly as you, but it is something that's very pertinent to a lot of health, especially with the amount of phytoestrogen and chemical estrogen stuff that's coming in. It's actually
blocking the testosterone production in young boys starting
Yeah.
early, and they're growing up without it.
Mm-hmm.
What was the key? Do you know what the key factors were for you for having a low T?
Largely, it was my weight, because my estrogen levels were very, very high early on. So that means that the fat stores that I had in my body were taking in a large part of what I was naturally creating and converting them into estrogens, because that's what extra visceral fat in the body does. It grabs it and it gets converted. And so that's a major part of it, but I'm not sure that I was ever really, really high on that, because I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, where we pioneered crappy plastic in food. It was just one of those times where it is very, very possible that I was exposed to a lot of things, and so my body just didn't create enough like it normally should. And there's not much. Well, actually, I was about to say there's not much that you can do about it, but our friend Jonathan Shane, he's actually an example of someone who is doing some things more in a more natural way. I was just far into my replacement project, or into my replacement protocol, to really stop where I'm at and do something completely different. For those interested, there are more homeopathic, natural ways that you can boost the natural testosterone production in your body without having to inject exogenous testosterone. But if you just want the simplicity of a shot every couple of days, that's a great way to go. And it's really simple. And I had one of the members of the group and a friend of mine, he's like wigging out about having to try to self-administer, and I'm going, it's not really that bad. And I sent him a video of it in about a minute 20, and that's with the breathing, with me taking some breathing techniques, because I have to make sure I have to relax my leg muscles where I inject. I have to force myself not to clench up, but in a minute and 20 I was done, and it was basically pain-free. And so if you do it right, if you ease into it, it's really, even if you're self-injecting, it's no big deal.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people have to do it. I came from a sports background where people participated a lot in the steroids.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'll do it.
Later on in life, they stopped producing as much testosterone on their own, so they actually had to do. And they said the injections for the testosterone replacement were much different from taking the steroid in the gut or in the butt.
Yeah.
So, but there are many forms of testosterone replacement out there. What type do you use? What type do you take?
I am taking testosterone Cypionate, and it is. Let me grab my bottle here. It's 200 milligrams per milliliter, and so I'm taking 0.7 milliliters per week, roughly, is what I aim for. And so I'll so that's that. I also the procedure actually that I had done at the urologist was I had my vasectomy, and one of the things that ended up that ends up happening naturally with that is, and then this also happens with testosterone replacement, is that your peanuts get a little smaller. And I should say that very clearly: peanuts, not other things. But you can mitigate that a little bit with other supplementary shots. So I do have a prescription for HCG, and then that I'm really bad about taking it consistently, but it's kind of one of those things that works when you use it and works, it doesn't whenever you don't. But that's for those that still have sperm production, it helps keep things cooking down there a little bit. but at the same time, it also, whether you have production going or not, it will help produce size that you might have atrophy on otherwise.
Yeah. And so we're doing the testosterone replacement. Are you doing any other things dietary or exercise wise to stimulate natural production as well?
1 second. I just got a bad buzz.
Oh, okay.
It must have been something on my side. That was weird. Sorry.
Okay.
Other than testosterone. So I've been ketogenic. For about 3.5 years roughly at this point. I'm roughly 60 pounds lighter than I was, which means that I'm getting a lot less conversion in testosterone to estrogen. And then like this month, I'm full on carnivore. I'm even trying to. I haven't eliminated them completely this month because I'm just bad at it and I like sweet. But I've been trying to even cut out, and I've cut out for the most part, which is saying something, as many energy drinks as I was drinking before this month. I've cut out a lot of the artificial or the replacement sweeteners and things like that. So I'm actually seeing a pretty big difference with that. This month is in the last 2 to 3 months. Rewinding, I did get to a lower weight than where I'm at, but then I went lax a little bit and I gained another 10 or 15 pounds back. Pretty normal, actually, pretty common. And and that stuck around for like 2 years. In the last 2 to 2.5 months, through just kind of being a little more active, through reducing the artificial sweeteners, to cutting out the faux keto or low carb treats. They should just be called candy bars, but they're the protein bars that say that they're low carb. I can say beyond a doubt, I got a continuous glucose monitor actually for a short period of time, and I tested some things, like I spiked it really bad, ate donuts and all the bad stuff, just to see what my response, what my body's recuperation from it was, and it was actually pretty decent. So that tells me that I've reduced my insulin sensitivity, or I've increased my insulin sensitivity, reduced my resistance, and so that's good. That's a good sign. But then I would be in a fasted state, and I would try those low carb protein bars, and my glucose would shoot straight up through the roof. And and I'd been kind of leaning on those pretty heavily, and so I've cut those out completely at this point, and that actually has made a significant difference. I've started losing weight again. I'm starting to see and feel a little more, not necessarily more in ketosis, just more healthy, more balanced than I was. And so I know now that was something that I was doing that was definitely holding me back.
And diet definitely does play a huge role in what you eat, especially with, I was reading an article the other day actually about how some of the artificial sweeteners or the components in what is commonly accepted as keto friendly sweeteners are actually very detrimental to testosterone production when you consumed in high quantities. So cutting those things out could probably have a major effect. Now, another thing that also affects testosterone, which is your movement, sitting all day long. I come from a trucking industry. You come from computers. In both cases, we're sedentary. We're sitting, and it compresses some things, disrupts blood flow, and prevents production. So you still work in the computer field. Is there some things that you do during the day in order to make sure you're not sitting as much and make sure things moving? Do you do anything like that?
Yeah. So I working for a company that has a little fruit logo. It makes it so that they really treat us really well. And so there's a couple different things. Just number one, they give us adequate breaks, like more than adequate breaks, and then I do 10-hour shifts. So I'm only working 4 days a week. That means 3 days that I can be pretty extra active doing other things that a lot of guys or gals don't have that ability to do. So on my breaks, I definitely try to get away from my desk. The other thing that is nice, that's my desk moving up and down. And they actually funded and provided a sit-stand desk because I have a bit of a physical condition from an injury a while ago that made it pretty painful, actually, to sit all day long. And so now it's very easy for me to be able to swap back and forth between a standing or sitting position and be able to have that flexibility of being up or down as needed. So that's a huge win in that regard, and I'm very grateful that the Apple invests enough in their personnel and their crew to be able to give us the tools that we need to be able to be healthy and continue to do the job of supporting Apple customers, which is something that I love and enjoy doing as well.
Nice. Yeah, it's, one of the things that one of the coaches that I worked with, he always told me, if you want to increase testosterone, work your legs and standing and being there. So that's awesome that Apple was able to help you provide that desk that you can stay standing, especially injury wise, and then also your other medical condition. That works great.
Yeah.
So we've been very open about talking about low test, and that's something that a lot of men have a hard time with, but a lot of men have a hard time talking about mental health, talking about what's bothering them. You, Berto, and Jim set up this fantastic group on Facebook, the Keto Man's Club, and I've been a part of it, been fortunate to be a part of it. One thing that I've seen is you guys aren't just about keto. You have created an open forum for men to express themselves in ways that they don't feel comfortable at home. And tell us what was inspired you guys to take that route and open things up like that? Is it just something that happened naturally, or did it?
Well, so Jim is the original founder. I came along probably 6 to 8 months after after it got going, but Jim was tired of the ketogenic Facebook groups that were all beginner questions all the time. And he very similar to the way that I saw this huge gap in the podcast area, he saw the same thing in the ketogenic community for men, where there wasn't any thriving keto men groups. There were a couple little, there's a couple people here, a couple people there, but they really weren't there. And then even those were still very beginner level, very juvenile. So as far as the journey of the ketogenic lifestyle. So he said, well, let's create a group and let's make it not for beginners. And so we are part of the reason that we aren't always very super focused on the ketogenic life and what we talk about, even though it all kind of hovers around it somewhat in the group, is that we're only bringing in people that are veterans, or we're only bringing in people that have been doing it for long enough that they can at least know what the macros are for a ketogenic diet. And now we have the beginners group for those people that have all the questions and things like that. And we put the keto men's, or the Keto 101 Men's Club is what that's called, and that's where all of that beginner conversation has, but we're fostering the same type of environment that we are trying to continue to keep as we grow in the Keto Men's Club. And so we are doing all of the real genesis, the real spark was wanting to have a community for men that was about a 201, 301 collegiate level in keto, so that we could avoid the beginner's questions. But it's been so much more than that. It's been so much more of a men being around men in a virtual locker room, and being able to, in some cases, quite literally take our shirts off amongst each other and not feel, bad about it. And, it really has fostered and created a space of camaraderie and togetherness that we really didn't have, that a lot of guys don't have in other aspects of life. And so while it is ketogenic centered, it becomes so much more than that, and it's been life-saving for a lot of people, including myself.
Yeah, I've seen posts where guys were being open about their wives cheating on them, or being open about loss, and very much so not the typical accepted thing in modern society where it's just shut up, swallow your feelings, move on. Guys have been able to open up, and everybody inside the group, instead of attacking somebody for opening up, they've been very supportive. And you guys really have kept a group that is mainly positive and helpful toward everybody, and so you guys have done a very good job on doing that. So
yeah. And Jim Berto and I are just 3 of about 7 different admins. So we all work together to try to moderate and make sure that we're keeping track of what's going on, the pulse and whatnot. The only reason that the 3 of us stick out so much is that we're on the podcast. Right. And so, but it's really, truly, it's pretty, it's a very, very much a teamwork thing. But the group also, we don't suffer trolls very well. So if you somehow get in and then you troll, or you start to try to stir up crap, it doesn't last very long. Our group self-moderates because we are trying to be authentic men around other men. We call each other on it, and we're like, hey, dude, no, that's not going to work. That's not going to keep going. No, you know? And so it really, if someone's way out in left field because they're just way out in left field on something, they get called on it. And it's interesting to watch that from an admin's point of view, because I've been a part of a lot of groups that, no, that doesn't happen. You have to step in, you have to shut down threads, you just have to, and most of the time the guy gets bopped in the nose verbally, and then he stops responding, and the thread just fizzles out. And it's great. So it's kind of one of those things, and that's how it should be. I think to a certain degree, for guys and just in general in society, I think that we should have the ability to be more authentic, and through that authenticity be able to moderate ourselves a little bit easier without having it dictated to us so much.
Yeah, acting ethically and as you would is really important. And unfortunately, the internet does allow that anonymous internet bravery to come out on some people, and they end up showing their true colors. But with this space that you created to allow men to not only be physically healthy through nutrition, you guys focus on athletics as well. the emotional health aspect, you guys have really put a play in it. And the mental health aspect, you guys have really put a focus in as well. And I would recommend any guys that are out there listening, definitely check out this group, because it's a great place to be for all those aspects. And in your own life, I know a little bit about your story of where you came up with, and you talk about it fairly openly about how you came up, and there was some emotional things that you dealt with coming up in life. So could you share a little bit about that with
Sure.
us?
Sure. I'm thankful that I've been able to be on a healing journey of late in that specific area. My healing has been so much more than just physical in the last 3.5 years. And it's been hard, and it's been, there are days when it was just pure hell in my world, and I tried to hide it. I tried to swallow it up, and I tried to do all those things to just charge forward and keep going, and all of that. To give a little bit of background, I don't hide it at all. I'm adopted, and I grew up without a father in the house, and I will say I grew up in the absolute family that I was supposed to grow up with. God placed me where I was supposed to be, and then I was chosen by those people, accepted, and brought into their family intentionally. So I never consciously felt that sense of rejection, that father wound, that a lot of guys or gals that end up being adopted, have, father or mother wound. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't there. And so through, I let things, well, now that I'm looking back on it, kind of, 20 hindsight being 2020, I can see the hallmarks of, okay, this is why I kind of ended up leaning towards this, and that kind of led towards this and this and this. So I can see some cause and effect now. But the truth is, it doesn't matter. I still had some bad habits that I let in. I let myself become healthy. I was a really, really good, nice guy, and I still am for the most part. And I'm realizing now that that nice guy syndrome has actually led me to hide things, or led me to try to contain or put up the right front in front of the right people all my life. And I read it once. I've got the physical book on route so that I can go back through and highlight and underline and make notes and all of this. But there's a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy, and it really, really, really focuses in a lot on a lot of what I've been working on consciously and unconsciously, because it really gets to the root of why I have some of the things going on that I've had in the mental health aspect. But along with that, we all get wounded by our parents in some way, shape, or form. Adoptive, non-adoptive, a natural birth and whatnot. And I was carrying around a bit of a father wound that I wasn't even truly conscious of. I felt rejected because where's dad? He's never been around. He's never been there. I have been through quite a bit of counseling in the last couple of years, which I highly advocate for at this point. I never did counseling growing up. I never did, before I was 35, I hadn't ever sat down with a licensed therapist for anything. Oh, I'll figure it out. I'll tough it through. I'm okay. And I'm really good at self-analysis. So I'm like, okay, I'll just figure it out. I'll just troubleshoot it. You can't troubleshoot yourself. So stop it, guys. If you're saying that to yourself, get some help. At this point, get televisits, whatever. Get the help that you need to get that outside perspective, because it really can be life-changing. One of those life-changing messages that I learned, I now embody in a tattoo on my wrist, and this is Morse code, and it spells out air as in royalty. And I had to hear from God, like straight from God, that I'm no less legitimate just because I'm adopted. And this reminds me that I am chosen, and that it before or after any of the other stuff that's happened, he chose me, and he was taking care of me all along, and he is my daddy God. And I needed that reminder. So I've got that in a very visible place that I see all the time. And I'm thankful for that revelation on a deeper level, and for the help that I had through my personal counselor to get to that. And we continue to work and keep digging, and we're finding more and more of those things, not necessarily things that I have to tattoo to remind myself, but things that are just as impactful. The other thing is, I've talked a little bit about it, and I don't have any reason to hide it, and it is that I actually reconnected with my birth family recently. And so I was able to meet my birth mother and my half brother, and I'm continuing to meet more of that group of people that were never in my life for almost 38 years, or almost 39, I should say. And I'm getting to heal some of those wounds too, of knowing my biological heritage and seeing some of the ways that maybe that has affected me in some things, because I'm a firm believer that there's both nurture and nature in life. And so, so I see some of those physical nature, even though they didn't raise me, there could have been XYZ, that type of thing. And so right. It's been a very surreal experience to get to experience that and be able to connect with these people. I'm very thankful to get to be my birth mom, but I'm honestly, if I'm being honest, I'm a little more excited to get to actually have gotten to meet my half brother, and to be able to connect with him and whatnot, so it's been good. We're not super, super close or anything yet. It's still a relationship that we're fostering and trying to build up slowly and carefully and whatnot. Neither one of us wants to encroach on each other's lives or anything, but it's been quite the journey, quite the process. And I've been I've been very thankful to get to know that. I've connected with my great uncle, who is the family historian, and so I've been able to get a whole bunch of information about my biological ancestry, and at least from that side of things. Probably the hardest thing about this whole the whole experience is that my birth mom does not have any way of knowing who it was that was my father, due to the circumstances of my conception. And so And all of this actually came around from a 23andMe, and I had someone that came in as a second cousin, and it was such a strong percentage that we're like, we have to be connected. And so we messaged back and forth a little bit, and she ended up putting the dots together, and I was able to dig deeper into all of that. And so so that was really cool to be able to meet it that way, from all of that. But yeah, it hurts a little bit not to be able to answer that question of who's my dad. But thanks to messages like this one, I also know that it doesn't matter. And I'm thankful for that.
Dude, your story man, it's amazing. And in many ways, you've been very fortunate for the circumstances that you're in. 'Cause, I used to work at group homes where kids didn't get but these wounds that you carried with you in the process of healing is not something that should be taken lightly. And the fact that you have come out to be a good man, and a man that not only was chosen by a family, but you have people around you that choose to be around you because of the human being that you are. You attract other good people to you. It's a testament of one, the family that raised you, your parents, and it's a testament to who you are as an individual. So I'm glad that you went on to that healing, and I'm glad you can share this, because so many men walk with these emotional wounds and are completely gutted on a daily basis. And not just, I'm adopted, but maybe they dealt with abuse, or maybe so many men have been sexually abused and don't open up about it and walk with those wounds. So many men have undergone a devastating PTSD type events, traumatic events, and they don't deal with it in therapy. One of the reasons why I wanted to have you on today is not only to talk about the testosterone replacement, because that's a big one for men, but also to talk about the mental health aspect of being men. I don't know if you noticed, we didn't really touch a whole lot about keto and nutrition. I've done a lot of those.
Yeah, well, keto is keto. I've got my own brand, but it can be summed up with I've been either ketogenic or carnivore for 3.5 years. Yeah. I've lost a whole bunch of weight. I'm healthier than ever. Good. I'm good. Yeah. Yeah. We can flesh that out as much as we want to, but honestly, these other areas are much more unique.
Yeah, they are. And also, people don't realize that these emotional wounds can have a physical effect on your body, and how your body functions, how you sleep, how your relationships. So can you tell us a little bit about how your background has affected how you relate to other people as you come through before and after therapy?
Sure. Now, I don't think I ever gave the book name earlier, but the book that I was referring to earlier was No More Mr. Nice Guy. And it's I can see that because of the wounds that I had, trying to please people, trying to make sure that people accepted me, from that same idea of that someone rejected me, that I wasn't good enough. It wasn't that at all. It was something completely different. And it had nothing to do with me. It was absolutely, I want to give Chris the best life possible. I can't give it to him type scenario. So it had nothing to do with that I did anything, because heck, I was 6 months old whenever I changed hands. It wasn't like I had any ability to make impact or consciously or anything like that. But I still carried around a little bit of that. I was rejected. I don't have a dad. Who didn't want me, those types of things. And I absolutely was growing up and well into adulthood have been the clinger honor, the guy that will inject myself into situations and make you need me because I'm just that valuable to this X, Y, and Z. And so it has tinged a lot of my relationships. It's tinged a lot of why and how I interact with other people, and that aspect of the people pleasing Mr. Nice Guy that I was persona that I was trying to put out there isn't all bad, but it was unhealthy. And I think that that's a pervasive thing among men. Our society more and more is teaching us to be nice guys, and we shouldn't. No, we shouldn't be going around being rude and jerks to everybody or anything like that. But we do need to. We do need to actually be able to have a stance, solid ground. Thus far, no more. This is the real me. All of those types of things without having to try to compromise and hide. I, for a very long time, was the guy that I could blend into any crowd. Like in high school, I hung out in classes with the people that were more than likely stoners. We didn't talk about it much because that just wasn't my thing. But I would hang out with the fringe in class. But then I was leader of our Christian club, and I would interact with the Christians on a pretty deep level. And I was in choir, and so I had and I was highly involved with my youth group. Like I was inventing ways to be useful to my youth group, and all of these things just so that I could be needed, just so that I could find acceptance in the crew. And now I enjoyed all those things, which is why I did them. But there was a desperation of, okay, I'm going to work this much harder. I'm going to do this much more because I have to be necessary to be accepted. I have to give something. I have to have something to offer for people to want me around. And so that's a lesson I'm still unlearning. Actually, probably is a better way of saying that, because I can absolutely see that I've done that as an adult up to even recent times. And so, and it's tinged my relationship with my wife. It's tinged my relationship with my family, my adoptive family. It's tinged almost every aspect of who I am. It's crazy. I was listening to the audiobook version of this book, and the first chapter is talking about what is a nice guy, and gave a couple use cases of this, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's okay, that's me. How did he know me? That whole line of thought where I'm like, okay, they seriously can't know me that well that they could just read my mail. And so I knew the book was totally for me, and so it is going to be one of those journeys. It's actually, I can see that I've already been on the journey of being more vulnerable, being more authentic, being more real with myself first, and being more real and authentic with others, whether that be other men or with my wife, and then in general to everyone else in the world. So it's kind of been one of those things that I'm having to stretch that muscle a little bit. I'm having to do a little bit of that open heart thing, and try to show a little bit more of what's going on inside of me, because I've, as open of a person as I'd like to think that I was playing it pretty close to the vest in some ways, and really kind of holding in a lot. And so letting loose, getting rid of that Mr. Nice Guy thing is going to be extremely transformative for me in a very, very long-term way. And I'm excited to see where it's going to go.
I'm a little familiar with the book. I haven't read it yet, but the author's been on a few podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things he talks about is the nice guy syndrome, of the fact that your boundaries are skewed as the nice guy, that you allow so many
Absolutely.
things to happen to you,
Mm-hmm.
and like you said, interject yourself to be needed, to be things. But there's other boundaries that you'll keep where you won't let people know what you're actually feeling, what's
Mm-hmm.
actually going on, until it just explodes.
Yep. And that's I don't have much of it still, but I'm a redhead, and so I've always had that redheaded temper. But that's made all the worse whenever I've tried to just bottle up, just bottle up, just bottle it up, and without being too explicit about the specifics of it, that's been a major issue in my marriage. And we've been doing some really good work in that regard of late, and I'm having to force myself, as I continue to learn to do so, to not just open up a little bit, open up a lot, and let my wife see those little things, or find and figure out the constructive, the healthy ways to approach, quote, uncomfortable conversations that I've avoided for, that I avoid on a very regular basis, as is in all of my relationships, but especially my relationship with my wife. And so it has tinged a lot, and the good news is that we're both working on it. We could have both. There was absolutely, I won't say reason, but there's been times where we were absolutely ready just to give up. We were just ready to say, nope, we can't do this anymore, and part ways. But we kept fighting through it, and we didn't give up on each other. And as hard as it was, as poorly as we fought, as far as the quality of fighting that we did in those times, we fought through them, and in the end, I feel our relationship is getting much stronger and much more healthy than it ever was, even from the start.
One of the things that I've was kind of coming to the realization of myself as late is a good guy doesn't always mean a good man.
Mm-hmm.
And so in your book, what makes a good man rather than a good guy?
A good man is someone that can be authentic and real, both to themselves and to others. And a good man is someone who genuinely feels like they have the ability, but also they have the desire to make a positive impact on the world around them. I firmly believe that we're all put here for a purpose. I firmly believe as a Christian that I was designed and created by God to be a light into the world for from a Christianity standpoint. But I also believe that it's, even if you separate the religious aspect or the for me, relationship aspect of that on a spiritual level, I firmly believe that we're all called in some way, shape, or form to do good in whatever ways we can. Local community, online. We all have something positive that we can bring to the table that will help someone else. And we have the responsibility to take the time to actually do that, to actually put that out into the world. And so I'm trying to do that as best as I can in the ways that God gives me the opportunity to do so. And I've had a lot of opportunity, and I get to to do a lot of crazy things. And there are times when that takes the form of me digging a little bit deeper and helping someone find their photos on their computer after thinking that they lost 10 years of their kids' photos, or or helping a person cross the street. I don't know, what that scenario is going to be different for all of us, but there are big and little ways that we can make ripples. And I use this analogy quite a lot on our podcast, because this is kind of how it is. And I use this as my promotion aspect is, be the pebble, the rock that starts the avalanche. Help someone out, even in some small ways, and it might just be enough to spur perpetual motion, to snowball that positive thing in their life, that betterment of them, that improvement for them, snowball that for them. But it all starts with just very small motions, very small initiation of momentum. And that builds on itself. And so I try to take that and apply that to the world. But that's absolutely part of being a good man versus just, a nice guy. Nice guys, I alluded to it, but I actually, I have a history of being pretty dishonest, or, I hid a lot. And I had my own demons, and thank God I'm past most of them at this point, and just dealing with the cleanup work at this point. But no, I wasn't ever doing anything illegal or, anything that landed me in jail, but I just wasn't, me being Mr. Nice Guy, I wasn't dealing with crap the way that I was supposed to. And it was absolutely causing me not to be such a good man, because I wasn't able to. I was allowing myself to have too much crap build up in my life to cause issues.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad you've come thus far in your journey to see these things and be able to have that kind of self-awareness that unfortunately a lot of men do not have. I think that's kind of what drives a lot of vitriol and a lot of anger and things that we see in our daily world, the hatred in the end, whether online or not, is people who can't accept themselves, so they can't accept other people.
Yeah.
So we want to go ahead and start wrapping things up, but I do want to touch on one thing about emotional and mental health before we go. And people may or may not know this about you, but you are an artist. You're a musician.
Yes.
And I want to ask how music has played a role in your mental and emotional health.
It's been an anchor for me. A lot of it. Now, I'm not good at being an artist for aspects of like non-Christian music and whatnot. I'm very much a praise and worship artist, but that's if I'm needing to reset my foundation, if I'm needing to calm down and focus, my meditation, my prayer life really centers largely around me taking time to create music or to play music and connect with God through that music. I've been part of worship teams since I was 12, and I play keyboard and guitar, and I do sing, and I've done these things both as acts of service for the church, because they always need a keyboardist, they always need a guitarist, they always need a sound person, those types of things. But at the same time, I do it because it's important to me to make sure I have that solid foundation. And one of the ways I connect with God best to reset that foundation is absolutely through my music and through that. And growing up, I was very involved with my church. I'm not hiding that at all. And one of the things after I had my license and I had a car is I had a church key, and my junior, senior year, I was either working at grocery stores and working into the evenings, or I actually switched into working at a movie theater there for a while. And so I wasn't getting off of work until 10:30, 11, midnight, that type of thing. And my parents did never really have curfew for me. I was safe. And so they knew that I could do what I needed to do. And so there were nights where my church wasn't far from my home. So I would, instead of go home after work, I would go to church, and I would sit down on the grand piano and I would just play for like an hour and a half, just play. And it was very, very healing in a lot of ways, connecting with a lot of people in the non-Christian world. They say that reconnecting with your source energy, or whatever you want to call it, but that's really what it was. It was connecting with God. It was connecting with my Creator, with my daddy, who I needed that time with him. And so I would be, up at church until all hours of the night by my lonesome, playing the grand piano, just playing. And so I've done other things similar. When I was youth pastoring in Harlingen, Texas for a while, I'd find myself at South Padre Island on the beach in the middle of the night, needing to have that time to reset, to focus, to hear, it's taken different forms over time, but music has definitely been therapeutic for me in a lot of ways. And it's one of the ways that I think I am most honest with others, because whenever I sit down and create, whenever I play, I can't fake it. It has to be real. And that's true with most things of art, but especially music is that way. When I'm sure that we've all, well, I guess I should say, or I should correct myself. You can fake it, but people can tell when you're faking it, when you're doing that with something artistic, specifically with music. You can get up on stage, you can do the dances, you can sing the song, but if you don't believe it, if you're not into it, people see right through it real quick. And there's less of a sense of intimacy there that people are truly drawn to. Those artists the musical artists that really believe what they're singing about and playing, you feel their music. It's not, they may play the same set every single night, night after night after night, but every time they play it, it's real and you feel it. And I endeavor to be that person. And for the most part, that is one area that I've never been able to compromise it. It just has been.
It's awesome. I've been around a lot of musicians. My brother's one, and I hear a lot of the same things, especially from the performing arts. I draw pictures. I can do whatever I want to do, but when it comes to performance art with music and things like that, it's a different, for lack of a better term, different stage.
Yep.
I'm almost tempted. I normally do 5 questions to close out the show, but I'm almost tempted just to ask you to play us out with something. I don't want to put you on the spot. But I don't want to put you on the spot. But I was like, oh, man, I want to hear you play.
what I will do is I have some content on my YouTube channel. I'll get you a link, and you can share that out. I'm too picky about all that. It's really hard. Like it would be hard. It would be hard for me just to pop out the guitar and do that right now.
Yeah, my brother's the same way. Try to put him on the spot with something, and it can be tough at times. You got to be in the right headspace and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah. So, but I do like to close out with generally five questions, and they're
Mm-hmm.
just quick, easy answer questions. Nothing too complicated, but it just kind of sees where your philosophies are. And one of the first questions I like to ask somebody is, who are your top 3 health heroes?
He's not very much in he's not very loud in the space anymore, but honestly, one of the people that was transformative for me was Brian Williamson, because he's kind of the guy behind Keto Evangelist, and his interviewing style on their podcasts were very transformative for me. It informed the type of interviewer that I wanted to be whenever I got into podcasting and things like that. But his thirst for science and truth, and his very straightforward nature was very helpful to me in taking the ketogenic way of life and really putting it into manageable, straightforward ways. So I'm thankful to him. And then, honestly, 2 keto dudes too. Their podcast was the same way, where it helped put things into that. And of course, Carrie is involved with that too. So I'll lump Carrie Brown in that with Richard and Carl. But as far as doctors and other things like that, I highly respect Dr. Kim Berry. He's an incredible source of great information. I'm enjoying greatly. I'm going to lump Dr. Sean Baker and Dr. Saladino kind of in the same side because of their carnivore ilk, and I'm seeing a lot of stuff coming from them that I think is transformative, not just for myself but for the world. And so I'm thankful to see that, and hopeful that their message will continue to grow and get out there, because I think there's a place for a primarily carnivore way of life and things like that. And so that's probably there's a ton of people out there. We actually just we recorded a couple weeks ago with Dr. Anthony J. You talked about the estrogenics earlier, and I'm. It was really cool to get to talk one-on-one with Dr. J, but he's another one where he's putting transformative things out there, and the list could go on and on because I've had the chance to connect with them. I will say on the last person that I'll call out, and this is because he's not just a physical health, but he's actually been he's been the pebble that started the avalanche for me in a lot of different ways on the mental health side of things, and is Danny Vega. He is out there with the Fat Fuel family. I count myself as a very as a friend, a true friend with him, and being able to work side by side with him and Mauro to help produce the Fat Fuel family and what they do with all of that. It's really been a really crazy and amazing experience, and he's connected with me with people that have ended up connecting me with people and leading me to realize different things, and really and truthfully has been life-changing and restorative in so many ways.
Yeah, Danny and Maura are great people. if you guys are out there and listening and pay attention to what they're doing currently, which I'm not sure when this episode will air, but they're right now working very much trying to get the word out about child trafficking and things like that. So they take a mission and they go after it, and they generally have a mission to make the world a better place. So
they don't have a slow gear.
No, not at all.
They don't have a slow gear at all.
It's 10th gear all the way. It's like it's amazing. So I also ask in the nutrition basis, what are 3 foods you think everybody should avoid?
Sugar, grains, and as much as possible, the artificial sweeteners as well. At this point, I'm becoming more. I still take them in, but I'm working very hard to be much more judicious about that and be intentional, not just to drink all the sweet drinks or things like that. There was a time there I was drinking 1 or 2 of the pre-workout, the Bang, the Rain, and 1 or 2 Monsters, and I was spending a small fortune at the gas stations. It was not good.
Yeah.
So for multiple levels, but the artificial sweeteners were absolutely, but yeah, sugar, grains, and then artificial sweeteners are things that people should absolutely avoid. If you can cut those things out, I guarantee that you will see an improvement in your overall health.
What 3 foods do you think everybody should include in their diet?
Meat, specifically ruminant, as best as possible. So I personally eat a lot of beef. But any
Good
type
Texas
of
boy.
Yeah. Well, I'm from Kansas City, so pork is just as important to me.
There you go.
But yeah, beef for sure, and then healthy green vegetables. So I've been doing this really strict carnivore this month. I'm starting to get to the point where I've got the craving for some really good roasted Brussels sprouts or some asparagus, those types of, if the deeper the green, the better, is in my opinion. It has to grow above the ground, things like that. So, but 3 that so meat, and then good green cruciferous vegetables, especially for men, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, they all have really good things in them that for men specifically help us to produce testosterone while having still a high amount of fiber, which in this case offsets any of the carbs that are there, and then and then just the other nutrition that comes with them. So it's those are really great options for sure. I think probably the last thing that I would say people need to or should put into their diet is, and I don't do a very good job of it, I just know I need to, is fermented vegetables. So I think I'll probably, after this month of carnivore, be introducing sauerkraut or something similar to, and actually I'm doing this while staying carnivore using yogurt right now, but trying to introduce things that will help the gut biome and make sure that the good bacteria has the things that it needs. So yogurt, but fermented vegetables is a really great way to get those healthy bacterias, the things that they need in our bodies and things like that. So those are probably the 3 areas that I would say focus on.
And can you give us a couple book recommendations for people that you would recommend to read for health? And it could be not just nutrition, but it could be any kind of health.
Sure. For men, if you hear my story and think of any of this stuff that would all the Mr. Nice Guy stuff, I absolutely would say get Dr. Robert Glover's No More Mr. Nice Guy. That I'm going to be digging into that one for a while, and all of that from a health aspect. Estrogeneration by Dr. Anthony J. It's very much at the top of my list. It's a very short read, and it's very enjoyable the way that it's been read. And let's see here. I do a lot of audiobooks. My library is very large. Try to.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. I'll throw this out there. For anybody that feels like they are unhealthy or might have imbalance in a sexual health way, there's a book called Unwanted by Jay Stringer, and it talks about unwanted sexual behavior. He intentionally doesn't call it good or bad. He just calls it unwanted. And without going into any specific detail, I can just say, I'll suffice to say it was eye-opening, and it was transformative for me to read that book, and I've revisited it some, and need to continue to dig into some of those things so I fully understand all of the specifics. But that's definitely a great book, that if you think that you might have some imbalance in the sexual life, read the description, read the back of the book, so to speak, and check it out. It may be worth your while, worth your time.
I haven't heard of that one. I got to check that one out. I've got to put that one on my list.
Yeah.
What is one major health myth that you just absolutely want busted?
Oh, the carbs are essential. I'm going to go with the keto, straight down the keto line, but the carbs are essential. They are just totally not. And it's ruining so many people's lives, and it almost ruined mine.
I'm there with you as well. So there might be some things that are combined with the carbs when it comes to natural foods, but the carbs themselves, non-essential.
Yep.
So before we go, I want to give you a chance to, 1, explain your shirt. 2, give us all your contact details and how people can reach you if they want to talk to you.
Sure. We the Keto Man's Club, specifically the podcast, but just kind of to try to bring in a little bit of funds to offset some of the costs of hosting and things like that. You know very well how it is. We've started to create some limited lines of merch. The shirt that I'm wearing right now is a steak, a greater than symbol, and a shake bottle, not a milkshake, a protein shake bottle, and it's stands for Steaks Over Shake, which is kind of a mantra in our group. Berto beats it into our heads over and over and over again until it just became part of our ethos there. But steaks over shakes, the natural, real forms of protein are going to trump a protein shake any day, because the protein shake usually comes with so much. So yeah, this is one of 2 shirts that we have, our logo shirt as well, that we produced. We just finished our second run of merch, and we'll do more at some time. We're actually leaning heavily towards doing a hoodie this next time around, so that will be fun. It'll be good. So but that's to support the Keto Man's Club, the Facebook group, the Keto 101 Man's Club, which is a beginners group, the podcast, the Keto Man's Club podcast, and all of that. So that supports all of that. You can find all of those groups, all of the links for all of that, including my Instagram link for @DuckmanKeto. You can go to theketomansclub.com. That's just as good as anything to be able to get in contact with me on Instagram or whatnot. I'm never without my phone or watch, and so I will respond relatively quickly as long as I'm upright and conscious. So that's really the way to get in contact with me for that, to theketomansclub.com and all of that. But yeah, that's kind of me.
All right. So I want to thank you for coming on, man. It's pretty cool. You're amongst the first people on the podcast. We haven't even, as of this point, none of the shows have come out yet. So you were going to be in the first roundup with Gary Taubes, Ted Naiman, so
Nice.
It's cool. Yeah.
Nice.
So
good company. Good company.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, man. So I'm going to go ahead and close things off, and I wanted to reinforce to everybody, please be kind to one another. Put good things out in the world, and it's very true that when you put good things out, good things will come back. So as we said earlier, reiterated, if you're a man, be a good man rather than a nice guy. If you're a woman, be a good woman rather than just a nice person, nice woman. So everybody, will see you on the next show.
Thank you for joining us on the Fatty Joe Show. Be sure to leave a comment and subscribe. It helps the show reach more people. To support the show, as well as Carrie Brown and Yogi's work on the blog, keto recipe development, masterclasses, and to gain access to private Facebook groups and other awards, go to patreon.com/thefattyjoeshow or patreon.com/Carrie Brown. Also, check out our Carrie Brown and Yogi Parker YouTube channel for video versions of The Fatty Joe Show, recipe videos, and more. Join our awesome community on the Facebook group, The Keto Kitchen with Carrie Brown and Yogi Parker, and check out our carriebrown.com website for recipes, blog posts, discounts, cookbooks, masterclasses, and other great stuff. Thank you so much.